Hi, my friends. I am back. I am so excited. I can't wait to share this next guest. But let me get in with my intro first because it's a little bit late when I'm filming this because we extended the filming hours on this. So bear with me on my brain dead or brain cells being dead. There we go. Bear with me on that. So, welcome to the Artist Within podcast. I am your host, Adela Hattel, for season one, The Road to Resilience. And this podcast is produced and hosted by myself and Project Human, Think, a new way to think about mental and emotional health. It's a nonprofit organization where we strive to communicate, educate, inform, and advocate for the individual human being about our mental health, about our whole being, and just to reconnect ourselves to daily functionality and existing and living, moving from survival to the living stage of what humanity is. And my next guest is someone this will be the second time we're kind of talking in person. Well, in person this gets, but this will be my second time really having an in-depth conversation. Our first time was such a random chance meeting in a random state that I went into because I work with the Parachute Goddess Project. So check out the episode we did with Leilana Hurley and her story. But we ended up in a place and I met this human, and the connection we had was just crazy. And then over these last couple of years, he's followed me, I followed him, and we've stayed in touch and just kind of he's kind of seen me through some rough times, and I've read some of his and been kind of there and to some of the things that he's gone through, and his story is just really incredible of why he was at the location and how we met. And so I'm really excited to introduce to you my next guest. His name is Devlin Clemons, and please correct me if I am wrong because my, again, brain dead blah blah are not there today. So go ahead and
No,
introduce
it's
yourself
fine.
a little bit better than. Oh, I meant to tell you guys. This is what I meant to tell you. He's a former pro wrestler. He has a podcast, and I'm not sure if he's going to continue with it, but which is really cool. I kind of started to listen to. It's called My So-Called Life with Pro Wrestling Podcast, and I'm sure he'll mention that a little bit because I'm intrigued about that. But please go ahead and introduce yourself a bit more and better than I did, and share your journey with who you are, where you're from, and how you got into pro wrestling, because I'm really interested in that. And then we'll get to how we met because that's really
No,
the
that's
fun part.
fine. No,
But yeah.
I appreciate it. It's a very wonderful introduction you gave me there. So my name's Devlin Clemons. I wrestled as an independent professional wrestler for 17 years under the name Devlin Anderson. I mean, when you have such a cool first name, you got to keep it. But you change the last name, you make a character, and of course, that's what I did for since 2002 up until 2019. So I did that for about 17 years. Um, that's really it. I mean, that's what I did in regards to that was my passion. How I got into it was when I was 3 years old, I saw pro wrestling for the first time on TV. And I ran in the kitchen and I said, Mom, I said, I found out what I want to do when I grow up. And she said, What? And I said, I want to be a pro wrestler. And I got the whole mom, yeah, that's nice, honey, kind of speech. Like, and then fast forward 15 years later, and I'm living in Columbus, Ohio, and there's a school that was ran here in a little suburb called Grandview, um, ran by a guy named Tom Miller, and went up there. I had a tryout. I trained for about 5 months and had my first match in May of 2002. I was 19 years old, and well, I was 18, about to be 19, and just kind of got in with some of the guys that were training there and other wrestlers, and kind of a journeyman. Went wrestled all over the United States, and didn't make any money. I lost more money than I made doing it. But I remember when I had my first match, and I was telling my mom, I said, "You remember when I was 3 and I ran in the kitchen and said, I want to be a wrestler, and you kind of blew me off and said, you're not going to be, that's fine, honey." And she doesn't remember it, but she's like, "I don't know how you remember that." I said, when tell me I'm not going to do something when I was a kid and I had my heart set to it. And it was one of those things where when I did it, I chased my dream, and it wasn't on a larger scale like working for a national company, but it was it was up there in my realm, and I had so much fun, so many good memories. I made so many friends, lifelong friends. It got me out of my shell as a
Mm-hmm.
human, because you can't be in front of, you know, people wearing spandex and not be shy.
Right.
So yeah, so that's kind of my journey, for what I consider professional wrestling, the greatest art form out there. And I have an argument. I mean, it's theater, it's physicality, it's sport, it's drama, it's soap opera, it's acting, it's everything, all nestled into one profession. Um, and I have a hard time when people say that it's not real. I won't use the F word. I won't say the F word
Oh, you're
because
allowed to. It's This is a free plat. At least
no,
my
no,
part of that.
no. In
What F?
wrestling, we're
Oh, the
talking about
fake,
the word
like
fake. Yeah, we're
fake.
not saying
Okay.
fake.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well, okay. Because
yeah.
it's a
I
because
won't,
it's
I
performance.
won't use. It's performance, but it's also physical, and it does
Yeah.
hurt. And I broke more bones wrestling than in 17 years than I did my entire life up until that point. So, um, but if when you look at it from an outside perspective, and some people who don't understand it and can't suspend disbelief for the time period that they're watching it, um, it's hard for them to get and understand. But I've seen people who've never watched it
Mm-hmm.
get drawn into the performance aspect of it, and it's that moment when you see them like, oh my god, what just happened, and you're like, yeah, you completely suspended disbelief for the 5 minutes. The best way that I can always say is like, we all watch Marvel movies. It's all superheroes. Do you think that the guy playing Captain America is really Captain America?
Right.
But you go to the movie and entertained and you're suspending disbelief for 2 hours
Thank you.
because we know he doesn't have superpowers. We know he doesn't have that, but we're entertained, and we have an emotion that comes out of that because of that. And that was kind of what my I if I had an addiction, it was that emotion I could bring
Yeah.
out in people. Whether you were booing me or you hate or you loved me, I loved that connection that I had with perfect strangers. If that makes
Yeah.
sense.
No, the way you just described it, because, okay, so my background is I'm still learning about American culture, period. Like, just about everything. Like, I just went to my first baseball game, which I saw that you were a big baseball fan too, and that. And so,
Really? You?
yeah,
How long have you been in the states? You do?
a long time, and nothing like I still haven't seen Forrest Gump. Guys, don't hate me on a lot of your American classics. This is where Adela is on a journey right now on learning that. This is why this podcast was created, for me to really learn and really absorb and understand. Just understand what American culture is, because everybody says we don't have a culture and there's not a culture, but there is, and it just in so many different forms, and it's a melting pot of cultures. But that's the culture of America, right? And so, like, I look at it as a like a good stew that you make, and you just need so many different recipe, spices and different textures and different parts and different types of food, ingredients in there to make something so delicious that one can look at it. So I look at that as that. So yeah, I just went to my
Mm.
first baseball game and I really did enjoy it. Although it did rain on me the whole time. I had great seats, but it rained on me the whole time, and I don't like rain, and I'm working through that, figuring out why. But I enjoy the experience quite a bit, actually, because my husband used to play baseball in high school, and he was really good. Like, and then he threw his shoulder out. But he played and he loves it, and then so we went with our son, and it was just a great. I didn't think it was going to be as boring as they make it out to be on TV, to be honest. Okay. So it was a lot better. But the way you described, going back to my point about the way you describe wrestling, I really, that's really a cool way, because for somebody like me, when I looked at it, again, I'm going to use the F word,
Fine, go ahead.
fake. Thank you. Because I didn't understand, like, how can you physically be able to, like, do those things and not die, like, that can't, or not be, like,
Mm-hmm.
broken, and not, like, again, but the
Mm-hmm.
way you put it into that context of it being on the level of
Mhm.
a performance. And again, I
Mhm.
haven't delved into that topic, which is really cool to talk about it. So to see
Yeah.
that, it changes my perspective, because now I get intrigued, because now I think back on like when I thought about the Rock and all these like big things, and I was like, these, again,
Mhm.
no offense, but I'm like, what are they doing? Like, this is crazy. And because they just didn't understand the performance and the level of it. And now
Mhm.
on this level, now that I understand
Mhm.
what human is, a human is an
Yeah.
artist, and human is a performance.
Mhm.
Human is an experience, and without the human, none of those things exist. And so the way you
Right.
described that was so cool, because again, it required different characters of humans, different
Mhm.
people and different stories to come in and share something,
Mhm.
and come up with these
Mhm.
costumes and come up with these scenes and plays, but in real life. And like you said, it was like a play, like a, so like, all when you said it, I've
Mhm.
literally saw these flashes of images of seeing on these TVs, and me going like, oh, I get
Mhm.
it now, I get it now, like,
Wow.
cool, like this is I can go back and now appreciate it for so
Mhm.
much more than what it was. So tell me, how you said it was, for you, it's the greatest art form. How has it
Mhm.
helped you navigate your, like you said, you've been in it for 17 years, you've done it out of passion.
Mhm.
A lot of the times when we're so passionate about something, or we found our purpose, as you said, like, it's not about the money or the end result. My nonprofit work, there is no money in it, it's service work
Mhm.
there.
Yeah.
It's what you're
Mhm.
doing. So, but it's my passion, like, it's my 60-year
Right.
plan, it's what my legacy is. So how has that helped shape you as a being, and in your functionality today? Like, how has that given you strength and resilience, and to push through? Because again, you said you enjoyed what you received from that, but you as an individual on
Yeah.
your own time, how did that help you through?
So, I mean, honestly, I felt like when I got into the wrestling business and I was in there for about a year, I felt like I belonged to something. I never felt like I belonged to um, anything. I wasn't popular in high school. I didn't have a clique. I was kind of my own person, you know. There was a few other people who really liked wrestling, and we talk about it when I was in high school. But when you get into the wrestling business and you meet people who are from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different ways of life, different income structures. I've known guys who were accountants that were professional wrestlers. I've known guys who were truck drivers. I mean, just a melting pot of individual personalities, and you have to learn to navigate them. And again, it was a lot like high school, but it felt like high school that the way it should have been for me, and I felt wanted and accepted, and we all had a commonality in regards to what we loved and how we were passionate about things. And the best part about it for me was being able to be creative and put together a match from start to finish, like a story, like a book, and being able to talk about how we're going to finish the match to make it all make sense to the crowd, and how we're going to basically we called it like dancing together. It's
Tell
like
me about, are
ballet.
you
It's like,
allowed to share trade secrets on that? Because, so
yeah,
tell
of
me,
course.
okay,
Yeah.
because I'm so, okay, as as a producer on my end, and as someone who
Yeah.
loves putting things together and like how the
Yeah.
puzzle works, now seeing
Uh-huh.
as an art form, like, I'm so intrigued how the show is put together.
No,
So
it's fine.
so
It's fine.
yeah, tell
Yeah.
me.
So basically, when we would get booked for shows, we would go to this promotion wherever it may be. We'll just say it's in, Hillsboro, Ohio, wherever it may be. The promoter says wrestler A and you are going to be wrestling tonight. Wrestler A is going to beat you, and you go, okay. How do you tell ask the booker or the
Okay.
promoter, how do you want this to go? Do you want him to beat me straight up, or do you want him to do something dirty to beat me, like beat me with like a roll up and hooking my tights, or hit me with a foreign object or something?
Okay.
And so this is how I learned about storytelling. So everybody wants to write a book, but they always want to write from the beginning. I always started writing from the end and working my way backwards,
Yep.
because we already know what the booker wants. How do we get to that end? So we would know moves. If I didn't know the guy, I would typically say, "Hey, what kind of moves do you do? What I can and can't take for the guy. Like there might be a move where I'm like, I can't take that. There's no way. Like I can't jump that high. Or I have no athletic ability to do such a thing. But we could get to that finish by having that discussion. And then when we get in the ring, we would actually talk while we're in there and talk about what the next thing we're going to do is,
Oh.
get where we need to go. So the visualization to the crowd is what we're doing. So if I'm a bad guy and he's the good guy, I have to make them so mad at me that they want him to beat
Gotcha.
me. And then in the match, typically, I will beat him up. He's not the hero. He's the hero. So the villain's on top. So I'm beating him. I'm beating him, and he gets the comeback on me. He gets to start beating me, and then maybe I cut him off, and I start beating on him again, and then he comes back up and he starts beating on me again, and then we get to the finish. The crowd explodes. They go home happy with that version of the match because they got to see the hero beat the villain. That's kind of how wrestling is. That's one wrestling 101, how a match would be put together in a nutshell.
That just makes me want to be part of producing a match so much as someone to be like, oh, that just sounds so exciting. I was just thinking in my head, like I've had so many podcasts this season of just again so much like seriousness, and I've not gotten as excited about like the showcase of that. And
Yeah.
so to me but that's what art does, right? When it can make someone
Yeah.
so excited about something that they know nothing
Mhm.
about and have no
Right.
complete understanding, but can see it visually and can walk through the story through a
Hmm.
conversation or through that moment. Like I'm there, like I'm there, I'm front row, and I'm watching, like I'm like okay, oh okay, because it's
Yeah.
so fascinating. You don't think about it that
Hmm.
way. At least I don't think about it that way. I'm speaking for myself, guys. For those of you
Most
out
people
there,
who don't. Yeah.
yeah,
Most people don't. They don't. They look at wrestling because we with now UFC is the big thing.
right, right,
That is a real life sport.
yeah,
The thing about pro wrestling is that in the 1930s and 40s there wasn't UFC. Pro wrestling was the UFC of its time, and pro wrestling wasn't always a scripted or choreographed sport. What
gotcha.
happened was is that some promoters got together and said, "Hey, we can make a lot of money on this if we just tell the wrestlers that we'll give you some part of the gate if you take a fall and let this guy beat you because we got so much money on this person over here. No one's going to know the difference." The reality of pro wrestling is no one really knew it was a show until around the mid 80s
Ah,
when Vince McMahon, because in the state of New Jersey, they had athletic commissions who really considered it still a real sport. So they had to get around the athletic commission. So he had to tell them that it was sports entertainment. And that's what he labeled it as, sports entertainment. So he didn't have to pay the athletic commission fees, anything like that.
gotcha.
So that's where it all kind of transitioned to where, and now really the internet, because the internet's less than 30 years old, it has given a window into everybody. You can go in there, you can YouTube secrets of pro wrestling, you can Google anything you want to know about wrestling. But since I grew up in the 80s and was such a fan of it, I never really looked at that. I knew that it was a show, but I also suspended my disbelief in my head because I got into the characters and the moves and the storylines and the it sounds sick, but I got into the violence of it too because it's a very violent sport. Um, and again, everything evolves. Wrestling evolves. It's
Yes.
evolved since I was a kid. The art form has evolved. It's a lot safer sometimes now for wrestlers. They're not taking unprotected chair shots to the head, and there's a lot of medical personnel on site for them, like the bigger.
Right.
Bigger companies. Where I was wrestling, it was basically like if you got hurt, you're just taking an
I mean,
ambulance
it was
ride to
the
the
old school
hospital.
way, right? It's the old school way
Yeah, it
back
really
then.
was. I mean, I wrestled in a flea market one time, and they pointed to this shack as our dressing room, and I literally, it was like an 8 by 10 tool shed, and I was sweating in there with two or four other guys, while these other guys were out there wrestling, and it was like I'm making no money, like
Yeah.
just doing this, but I loved it, and that was my passion, and that's why I stuck with it for so long, is because it gets in your blood, and it's one of those things that you just can't get away from it as much as they say wrestlers never retire. And
Right.
I'm if someone called me right now and said, "Hey, we got a show. We were thinking about putting you on there," I'd be like, "Oh man, I gotta go dig my boots out."
But you'll be like,
Like
okay, I'm
it's
on
been
it. Right, but
it's
I'm on it.
been it's been 5 years since I've had a real match, so
Yeah,
it, it's been a it's been a while.
I think one of the great things I've been learning these last couple of years, really, because I grew up in such a violent like life, and I mean I'm
Yeah.
talking like war violent, not So I think when I see things that are done violently on purpose or like for entertainment purposes, it took me a long
Mhm.
time to process of like why that could be done, like why. But
Mhm.
human beings, part of our human experience is aggression. Like it is
Mhm.
literally part of our human experience, especially for the male um, gender on that. Like it really is part of that. And what I didn't realize until I had a son and until we put him into jujitsu and like really needing that
Mhm.
level, and he wants to do Muay Thai and all these like other things. And I'm like, look, dude, I've compromised on jujitsu and like that, like, as a
Yeah.
mom, my like thing is just protect this
Yeah.
precious
No.
thing. But at the same time, if we don't allow boys and men and spaces for this level of aggression to kind of be a form and turn it into a form of play, but also use it as a mental health resource. Like, if you really have to get something out, you can go in with your buddies and you can do
Mhm.
some damage and let some steam off, but really still
Mhm.
create something, right? Whether that's a bond, that's a friend,
Yeah.
that's a show, that's something. And that's something I realized again going through
Yeah.
jujitsu, watching my son perform and watching my son go into competitions, and again being the mom that's like, oh my god. But now I'm like, get his ass, like get his, because I
Yeah.
see the need for that for him. I see that, and then I also see the need for me to
Mhm.
have that within me too, because it like, I don't know, it does something to the body of going like, yeah, just to kind of give that, because it's part of us. So I think it's really cool to now see it from that perspective versus where it was just like,
Mhm.
no. And now be like, no, this is an appreciated form, an appreciated
Yeah.
human expression. And again, as someone who had to learn what the body needs, that form of
Yeah.
movement is, as you said, is an art form, because you got to create dance moves, you got to create these formats, but you also got to like put on this performance of stunt work, and in a
Mhm.
way that we again credit, like you said, these movies and these places that do it because they do it
Yeah.
the way that they do it on the screen. But when you go in real
Mhm.
life, it would be like a play on it's a play on, on a stage, and it's so great. um
Yeah.
it's so
And
great to see that. Yeah.
it's funny because I have a friend who he does stunts in Hollywood. He's been in a lot of Marvel movies, and he was a professional wrestler. And that's he when he got out of the business, he decided that he wanted to go and he was in a I want to say it was a Bruce Willis movie. And that's how he got his start because he was bald and he kind of looked like Bruce Willis. And they're like, yeah, we need a stunt double for Bruce. I can't. It's Looper. That was the name of the movie. That's when
Okay.
he got started. But he's done a ton of work in the Hollywood. Been in like, um, oh, what's that movie? I can't think of the name of it. But again, he's been in a ton
Right.
of stuff, like like high end. Like he's not doing like B movie work.
Right.
And he loves it. He loves every second of it, and it's
Right.
because it kind of keeps him in that wrestler aspect of the stunts and putting his body what he puts it through
Right.
and still being on the performance side of things because he can go back and watch the movie and be like, yeah, I did that
Yeah, I did
stunt. Yeah,
that
I did
stuff and
that
be
stunt.
proud of it.
That's cool.
Yeah, and in that, yeah.
And it's art in the sense like it's gonna sound weird, but it's
Yeah.
like sick art because it's like he's putting his body through
Yes.
heck to entertain the masses.
But then can we argue that if we consider that like almost a sick art, I would think that then because I listen to David Goggins and I'm a huge fan, and I think his level of extremity is sick, and that level at what he's willing to put his body to. If you haven't listened to his book, oh my goodness, now I forgot the name, I see it, but David Goggins is his name. He's genuinely like, I've listened to him, and like the inner me, I have a David Goggins. I'm just not willing to literally do what he's done. He's like, he's been through uh, uh, um, uh, Navy SEAL training. He's been in every. He's just, when I tell you this, this is a master human being, and what he does to put his body
Right.
through, like, it's sick. Like, it's sick, and I mean, almost demented sick, but at the same
Right.
time for him. And this is no, again, don't take it wrong way, guys. It's just
Yeah.
again, the scale of humanity and our levels of what we're willing to push ourselves and push our bodies through. I look at that and I'm like, holy shit, that level of determination, that level of like resilience, because that's literally what that is. And then also that level of will, that level
Mm.
of dedication, that level of drive, that level of just, I don't give a fuck. This is what I want to do. This is what I love to
Yeah.
do. This is my thing. And I'm
Yeah.
going to do it, period. I don't care how much it
Yeah.
hurts. I don't care what bone it breaks. I
Hmm.
don't care what, like, I don't care if it takes my life today. I just want to know
Hmm.
I did it to the fullest extent of what I was capable of. And
Yeah.
when you describe it that way too, like, you can always, in any art form, in any place, in any, you can find that level of humans who take it to the level of like really extreme, but for them it's not at all. Like, they're capable of that. Like, for me, that would just be,
Right.
I would die. Like, that's instant. Like, but I want to think,
Yeah.
I want to really think that I would
Yeah.
have some level of that guts, right? Some level of that resilience if I really had to be pushed into that. So then we
Mm-hmm.
go back into our everyday life and go, well, why can't I handle my everyday life, or why can't I do
Hmm.
some things? Or when humans are putting their bodies through so much,
Hmm.
and they have found a key to really connect their mind and body, and open the voices of going, like, I'm, and you and I, this is where we're going to get into the conversation of our meeting. But when I started with Parachute Goddess Project, I was new early into this art stage too, and new really into everything. But I was there for a whole different reason, as you were too. And mentally, again, I don't think either one of us where we are now. I think
Mm.
we're both, so much like you said earlier, wiser,
No.
and we both have had losses and tragedies and things even through that experience.
Hmm.
And I found that not being able to function through the day has been literally like the hardest part of existing, because you feel so much shame
Mm.
on yourself, because you're like, I can't get up, brush my
Mm.
teeth, I can't get up and do something, I can't do this, I can't be here. And I remember when I was on that trip, this is kind of where I was at, to be honest. Like, I was
Mm.
at that level of lowest, but I just knew I wanted to
Wow.
create and I wanted to express. I didn't know what it meant, but I'm gonna do it. And so when we came to New Mexico, you know more about that. We were literally driving through. That happened to be a pit stop, like just a random,
Hmm.
let's stop at this location. Let's see what we can do in 15 minutes. So from my perspective, that trip was me and Leilana coming in. We're in this parachute. We're on a hike. We're like looking for these amazing places to just stop and pop and create. And we
Mm.
found this little town or this little motel or this, I don't know. He'll give you the full story of, because he has a
I
story where he
will.
was there. And I, of course, was like, I want to shoot, but I also want to ask permission. So I'm like, oh, well, there's the owner right there. Let me go talk to him real quick and just be like, hey, can we take 15 minutes, 5 minutes just to do whatever? And and he's like, I'm not the owner. I'm just here, whatever. And I was like, oh my God. And then we just kind of talked for a second, but it was such a rush at that time too. It was, so much was happening. We had another human, I forgot her name, I just had it at the top of my head, that we had met there too, that she was passing through and helped us out, and which was just so cool to meet two humans and then meet you and stay connected. And I
Mm.
and our hug that we had, and when you shared with me why you were there, I
Mm.
and I, he'll share all that with you, but it just,
Yeah.
it made me realize that we're all one step away from that. We're all one step
Hmm.
again away from that moment, and the amount of shame and guilt we all have upon ourselves because the society says you're supposed to be just the greatest thing ever in the world, versus I am enough for today and functioning and doing what I need to do, and I'm just taking care of me, and that's good enough. And if I happen to come through, and if something, like, that's good enough for the day. That doesn't mean I can't strive for more, I can't do for more, but tuning that out, that made me realize in your story, and that, like, how close I always was, and even through that time, how much I was thinking about that, and how much I was almost wanting to, even though I had my son, even though I had my life, even though I had this thing, but the expectations of the world were just too much
Mm.
for my little old self. and
Yeah.
not being able to kind of shun it all out, because as I started out, I was like, let's just go. So you
Hmm.
really helped in that moment, really helped ground me. And then when you reached out to me when I had that one loss, and on Facebook during that time when I was in my moment, those moments just helped ground me of like, okay, well, there's humans that I don't even know. Like,
Hmm.
don't even know, but that one moment, one
Yeah.
chance, that 15 minutes can
Hmm.
change and alter courses forever. And that's kind of what happened, at least from my perspective, what happened from there. So I'll let you share the story from your perspective.
No, I appreciate that. All those are very kind words. You've always had good kind words. Um, so I technically I took that trip to Phoenix and I drove through New Mexico. Um, my best friend passed away in August of 2019, and this was March of 2020. And I I needed to get away from the familiarity of because we lived together for so long, and everything around here reminded me of him. And I had never been to the Southwest. I always wanted to go. He had went as a Boy Scout to New Mexico, to a Boy Scout camp up in Cimarron, and I said, I want to go out to, I had friends out in Phoenix. They said, hey, you have an open invite. I called them. It was a spur of the moment trip. I said, I want to come out there. I want to spend a couple of days out there just um, trying to find something. Um, I didn't know what to expect. It was more of like um, a spiritual journey. Like I said, I just went out there with a plan of where I was going and where I was staying, and that was it. I got a rental car. Um, but probably what you don't know is that I try to think things out in my head, logically speaking. So I flew into Phoenix. I got to go way back. I flew into Phoenix, and again, flying from Ohio to Phoenix, it's nighttime. It's like 12 o'clock midnight. We are 15 minutes from landing, and my iPhone, which had never blacked out on me before, blacked out. So now my car rental information is not on there. The directions to my friend's house is on there. Everything that I need to navigate Phoenix is on there. So I knew I had to go to the rental car place. And I knew where that I had memorized how to get there. I knew how to get on a shuttle to go up to there. I went up there. I had my ID. I had everything necessary to get the car. I just didn't have a way to pop my phone. I get to the rental car place. They were kind enough to upgrade my car to an SUV. But I had to get manual directions from someone. And it was just to surprise Arizona. It was not to my friend's house because I didn't have their information. We don't have things written down anymore. It's
Right.
all in our devices. So I drove to Surprise and I went to a Walmart and I said the Walmart's open. I can coax someone into getting on their messenger and messaging my friend. And what I found out is that in today's society, there are people who won't help other people. No matter what your story is, no matter who you are, where you come, you could show them ID. I showed them my plane ticket. I said, look, I don't need to touch your phone. I just need you to get on Facebook Messenger and message this gentleman's name and let him know I'm here. No one would help me. Called the Phoenix police or called the Surprise Police Department. Said, hey, what do I got to do to get you to figure out where my friend lives and take me over there? And they're like, well, we really can't do that. Blah 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 blah. Okay. I said, so if I go and smash a window out in the parking lot, like you'll come arrest me, or at least I have a place to sleep. And he's like, well, I don't really know if you should do that. I'm like, okay, that's cool. So I said, well, I got this rental car. At least I'll sleep in the car. Maybe, and there's a Verizon store right across the street. I said, well, maybe in the morning go figure out what's wrong with my phone. So I spent almost an entire night in the parking lot, and nature calls sometimes, right? So I said, well, I'll go around the building and I'll use the restroom behind the building. And so I had the car door propped open. That way I wasn't exposing myself. And I could see my phone sitting on the car, and it finally died. And it started to spin. And I was like, please come back on. Please come back on. And I plugged my phone in, and of course it came on. I got on Messenger immediately. I told Rich and Becky, my friends, I said, where are you guys
I'm
still up?
alive.
I'm on my way. They're like, you're like a mile. Like, yeah, we're up. I get there, knock on the door. He opens the door, points me to my room, and goes back to bed. I wake up the next morning. They literally thought that I had ghosted them. I've known these guys for like a decade. They're like, we thought we ghosted you. I was like, I literally took pictures of me in the Columbus airport. Like, are you kidding me that I ghosted you? Like, what do you think happened to me? Like,
Like they
I'm
were
glad I'm
just
not
gonna.
dead.
I know, right?
I'm glad I'm not
Like,
dead. Like, I'm glad someone didn't mug me in the outside the airport. So,
I'm
like,
not
they didn't even
laughing.
file
I'm
a
not like that's
no, you're fine. Like, I'm like, you guys didn't even think to file a missing persons report or
right.
anything like that. Like, at least the surprise the police would have put two and two
Two
together.
together, maybe. We're calling for a missing friend,
But
and a missing friend called.
the point of that story is and I took all that in was I was sitting there in the car listening to music. I said I was kind of talking to my friend out loud and I was kind of laughing and I said I've been in a place that I don't know for 6 months. And now I've come to Phoenix and I'm in a place that I don't know. But I said everything will work itself out. And everything worked itself out. Now, phase two, I spent some time in Surprise with my friends, but I had this plan to drive to Cimarron. But I also always wanted to go to New Mexico and go to a little town called Lincoln, which is the town you and I met in.
That's it.
And because it's very historical, known for Billy the Kid, all that stuff.
What?
That's the
What?
hotel I was staying in. I was the only occupant of that hotel the whole night. There was no other people there, none. I slept in a 200-year-old hotel by myself.
The things that
But
I could have
I
done.
I was late getting up that morning. So I don't believe in coincidences. I believe that things that happen to you in your life and people that you meet in your life happen for a reason.
Yeah.
I met my best friend by getting in a bar when I was 18. I had no business in that bar, but I met him. That's where I met him. No business. I shouldn't have been getting in
Right.
there drinking at 18.
We all did it. That's what we did in our
We all
days.
did
That's
it,
listen. That's what this
but that's what happened.
generation. No offense, but that's what this generation will never really know about.
Right. So I was late leaving Surprise to drive to Lincoln. So I had everything timed out. Like I have to be here, here, and here, 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 and here. I got to Lincoln and I had been there probably 15 minutes before you showed up. So if I was early, we
What?
might not have, I mean, if I was early and I went and did something else, we might not have ever met. Now,
What?
let me explain to the listeners of what Adele looked like when I met her. Here comes this firecracker of a lady,
I think my head was
and
shaved then too.
that was going to point this out. Her head was shaved, but she had this energy aura about her, and she didn't look. She didn't even ask me for a hug. She hugged me like she knew me. I kind of like put my hand out to shake her hand, and she like hugged me, and she's like, "I give hugs,"
Yeah, I do
and
that.
I said, "Okay." So my thought is, and don't think bad about me. I said,
No.
this lady's dying.
No, but really, a lot of people thought when I shaved my head that I was going through something.
Yeah,
I was
I
just
thought
not
I thought
that
she had
something.
nothing left to live for, and she was living life to the fullest. And she's out here in New Mexico taking these photos and hugging random strangers. I could have been a serial killer. You don't know.
I know, no.
You
Everybody
don't know.
they tell me that to this day. I'm not allowed to go alone anywhere. I have no
Right,
privileges in my life because I'm
right.
like, "Hi." Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I'm just like, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of like, You're like, hey, can you help us with this photo? And I'm like, absolutely. And in my mind, I'm going, she's just living life. She does not care. And so the thought in my head was that you were dying. And I was like, oh my God, she's showing me that you have to live. You have to be this, you have to be something, and you have to live for more. And she's being, again, random meeting. I would have never met you
No.
if I didn't leave late. If I didn't leave late,
If
like
you
I
didn't
said, I
get,
could have been
if you
off doing something.
listen, God turned your phone off for a reason.
Yeah, no, I'm saying things on this trip happened for a reason, and it
Yeah.
made me a better human being because of it. So again, you leave, and I'm like, I'll never see that girl again. She'll be gone and dead, and I'll never see her again.
This is the
And
best
it was
story
sad.
ever.
It was sad, but I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get on Facebook and I'm gonna see if I can find her and just let her know what it meant to me that she did that, because she if she's dying, she needs to know that she touched somebody's heart. So I was like, that's gonna help me feel a little bit better about what I'm going through. So fast forward past that, the next morning I get up and I drive from there to Roswell, and then up to Fort Sumter, and then up to Cimarron. And I get to Cimarron, and I'm gonna spread my for part of my friend's ashes up there in that Boy Scout camp, and the National Boy Scout Museum's right there, and I can't find a perfect spot, and I see it. There's just a field. It's right behind the Boy Scout Museum, and I'm standing there, and I'm crying and shaking, and I can't do it. I can't say goodbye, and I'm trying to coax myself into doing it, and I'm saying I'm like, Devlin, you can do this. Just say what you got to say. And I was so mad at him because he didn't take care of himself health wise. And I'm like, I said a lot of things I probably shouldn't have said to him, but I'm like, this is how I feel. Let me get this out. And I threw his ashes. And as soon as I threw his ashes, this breeze came up off the ground, and it went from my legs to my soul. And I'll never forget it. It felt like, you ever been on a roller coaster and you went up to down? That's how the feeling was to me.
Wow.
And I stopped crying. I left out of there. My mental fog was gone. I felt like a new human. I say that field I was reborn in. And every day I get to see that field. It's on my phone.
Yeah.
I keep that on my phone every day. So when I look at it, I know he's there. I'm there.
Oh.
That feeling is there. And I don't forget it. And that whole rest of that trip was fantastic. I enjoyed my whole trip, and I look back on it, and because my mental state in that was driving from Lincoln to Cimarron was, I could pull off on the side of the road and start walking, and no one would find
Ever
me
know. Mm-hmm.
for years.
Mm-hmm.
I would just be a missing person,
Yep.
and that was a hard reality. Like I said, driving there was, I put the radio on and I just said pick songs. I told my best friend, I said pick songs, and of course, whatever random songs came on were all tear jerkers.
Of
And
course.
I'm like Tears in Heaven, and I'm like driving and crying like a baby, and I'm like, and I'm only an emotional guy when it comes to the people that I love. Like, I don't want to see the people that I love hurt. I don't want to see the people that I love pass away. And I know death's a part of life, but my best friend was 43.
Yeah. And
He
it's
he had
young.
he had a lot of, it's young. It's young. It's a lot of
Yeah.
life to live, and you know a lot of things you have to come to terms with. And I always, one of my favorite sayings is that I am myself. I am where death is most alive.
Yeah.
Whether it's my father, whether it's my grandmother who I cherished, or whether it's my best friend, I can tell stories. My dad's a part of me. His genetics run through me. My grandmother's genetics run through me. They're not dead. A piece of them is alive. And as long as I can tell stories about my best friend, about my father, about my grandmother, they're alive in the atmosphere. And you can't take that away. I wish they were here 100%.
Of course.
Am I 100% better? No.
No.
I saw a video clip of all people, Billy Bob Thornton. He said I'll never get over my brother's death. But if that's what it takes for me to move on and for him to be remembered, then I'll suffer. And that's how I go through life
I remember
nowadays,
seeing
is
that.
that
Yeah.
is that he said, I was like, oh my God, that resonates so much with me, because
Yeah.
I am in constant, like, okay, this was a bad day. Like, it's almost my best friend's birthday. And so Halloween was his favorite time of the year. So when he first passed away, it was in August, and then that initial October, like, I cried at seeing a spirit Halloween. And
Oh.
it was because he would call me and he would say, "We're going to Spirit Halloween," and he'd hang up the phone. And I'd be like, I didn't have a say in it. He would just be like, "We're going," and he'd hang the phone up. So when I'm driving past it and I saw it in the corner, I was like, "Oh my God!" And then I'm driving some more, and I'm like, "Why am I crying? Why am I physically crying?" And it was because of that. And I've learned to let certain things slide and let certain things go, but I've also allowed myself to be vulnerable and
Yeah.
cry, and allow that to happen, because you need that. You need to come to terms in reality with the sadness that you're feeling, because if you just allow it to bottle up and be manifested in yourself, you're gonna end up like me in Arizona and Phoenix, trying to figure out, your path now in life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, like I said, you only knew part of the story. You didn't know
Yeah.
the whole
No, I had no
shebang.
idea. I mean, you told me you were there to honor your friend and that he passed and you were just there to
Yeah.
experience this. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm sorry for your loss and let me give you a hug. And just because I, there are no, to me, in a time of loss, this is something I've struggled so much with because here in America I mean, in every culture and everywhere, but here,
Yeah.
predominantly here, because I'm here now. But at a loss, like I understand we should be there, but what do you say? Like there's nothing to say. Like I'm sorry is no suffice. Like there's condolences or not. Like there's no word. There's no action. There's no, like, at least in my mind, that if I were to lose someone that, like, that I loved at that level, and I've been at that, like, and
Mhm.
I've been at spaces where I've lost people and I've been going in my, but there is like nothing in those moments of grief. And so, to not be able to not know what to say, to not know what to do, I found that giving a hug and just like that human connection, um
Yeah.
because I don't think words are just, and again, I'm, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, because I just don't think there are words to describe or to say, and like, for what the human is going through in that state. There's
Mhm.
nothing, and when we try, I don't know if we make it worse or if we make it better, or I don't, and so I
Yeah.
figured that if I'm going to invade private space and personal space, I don't know how to do that on an emotional level yet, but I'll do it on a physical and give you a hug and hope that my
Yeah.
hug and telling you that I really just, I am sorry, but I wish you all the best and the joy, and
Sure.
and if we can feel that through that, I found that was a very good way for me to find words now, to be able to just say, I have no
Mhm.
words, but can I give you a hug, and now ask permission, because I didn't at that time either. I was just hugging people left and right.
Right.
Now I
But again, like
ask
I
for their
said, you
permission.
understand the flip side of that coin, where how your appearance,
Yeah,
like threw me
that.
off, and it was like I
You're like,
I
sure,
I
I'll
wanted
help you out with whatever you need this right now.
I
Like,
I
yeah.
want I wanted I thought, oh my God, this girl's sick, and I'm afraid to hug her at the same time, because I'm like, maybe my germs will get her sick, because it was right at the beginning
Yeah.
of COVID. I'm like, oh my God, like, am I going to get her sick? Because I don't know, and you can't ask in that situation, like, hey,
Right.
are
Like, are
you
you
sick?
sick?
Like,
I'm
I
not
just saw
laughing, you guys. I'm
a
just.
very
This is
dainty.
great.
She was very petite, skinny lady with a bald head. You don't see those types of women all the time. And then we've got a parachute dress, and you're like,
On this,
I'm
like,
sitting there going,
journey.
it's shoot, yeah. And she's like, we're just traveling through here. And I'm like, they're kind of on the same journey as me. but I don't know how to address this. I'll never not say no to a hug, but how am I going to like not try to breathe on this girl or
I'm
transfer
so sorry.
germs? And no, it's not your fault, but I needed you to know that
No,
that
that's so
mentality was
great. That's
there,
so great.
and
I
was like, she needs my hug, but and in reality, I needed her hug, and it was just like she was doing out of the kindness of her heart, and in my mind, it was because she's living life to the fullest because she's gonna die soon, and
yeah.
I'm like, oh, or she's been told she's got 6 months to live, so she's traveling with her friend taking all these great pictures because I got to see some more pictures after we had become
Yeah.
friends on Facebook that week. So I was like, oh, they went out to Roswell and they went out to this great like lake and they took pictures out there. And I'm like, oh, she's just taking pictures everywhere. And then I find out she's not sick. And I'm like, oh, now I'm the jerk because I could have just been like, yeah, thank you. Thank you for the hug. Like, you're such a nice lady. But no, I didn't get to do that. I got to be sitting over there overthinking stuff like I normally do.
Oh my god, I love this. Is like the best. This has been the best so far. This has been the funniest because I just think it's so hilarious that, but it just proves again our own, what our brains and what our minds can do and the stories that they can create.
Yeah.
And to me, this is gonna end up in my stand up. By the way, when I do my stand up, it's gonna end up in there, right? So this is hilarious, because people aren't as honest about what their initial thoughts are to humans because they're
Yeah.
so afraid of like how it's going to come off, how it's whatever. And I literally thrive on that because
Yeah.
I don't have a filter. So if I meet someone and I have a question, I'm
Sure.
curious or I don't understand or I just want to say it, like it just comes out. It's not intentionally for me to be like, "Oh, this is," it's just like, "Oh, look, like okay, like that's a okay."
Yeah.
Nothing because my brain is processing. And so again, for you to have that experience with me and to tell me is so cool because I don't meet humans
Hmm.
to do that, to be like, hey, just so you know, like I'm like,
No,
yes, this is
I've
so
always look. I've
funny, this
always
is
wanted
so
to tell you
great.
that story. We've just never been in a situation like I I I I have eventually have plans to come to Florida.
Oh
I've never had
yes.
I've never had the opportunity to be like pull you aside and be like, hey, you
Let me
know,
tell you the
here's the
story.
situation. Let me tell you why our first encounter was great and also very weird at the same time.
Oh my
So I mean,
gosh.
your stand up could start out with like, have you ever had someone think you were dying?
Yeah, and then you go through a whole life and you go through months and
Yeah,
you know this like, and it's a whole two scene.
years.
Welcome, right? Welcome to the
Yeah,
story.
yeah. So I mean, like I said, I have look, I have no shame in being able to
This
tell
is
people how I actually
fantastic.
felt, and embarrassed. Look, I wrestled in spandex in front of strangers. My couth is gone. I don't care. So I will be able to express any kind of story that I need to, and it's not a bad thing. You know, I was
No,
trying to be cognizant
no,
uh,
yeah.
of your sickness, so to speak, but I wasn't. You weren't actually sick. But again, like I said, that's what made that whole interaction that part you didn't know. That's what made it so special for me is because
Oh,
you didn't really know what I was going through because I don't reveal that to strangers. Why would I do that? But for you to just hug me and not shake my hand, and I'm like, she doesn't know who I'm in my mind, literally thinking about like she doesn't know me. Why is she hugging me? And I'm like, she's not like this isn't like a tap and go. This is a hug. And I'm like, she's either super perceptive of somehow what someone's going through, or she's really sick and she said, heck with it, I'm hugging everybody. Everybody's getting love before I go, or she just does this on a regular. But my whole like 80% of my mental was like her head shaved. 1 plus 1 is 2. We're 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 going with
journeys
we're going with
of
the
like
sick
life.
factor.
Yes.
Yeah, but again, I don't believe in coincidences. I believe
No.
paths cross for me, and I've told this story to strangers about me meeting you.
Oh my
I
gosh,
said
really?
I met these two strangers in the desert. We're literally in the desert. Like it's like a bad like joke
Yeah.
how or a bad story how stuff
Like
starts
for real,
out.
it's a
And
horror
I'm like,
movie waiting to be happened. So if you wanted to write a
right.
horror script, like you are more than welcome to, and just cast us, but we'll make it funny.
100%. But like that's how we met. And I'm like, that you meet these two strangers. I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, I'll never see them again, like physically never see them again. But I'm like, and I was telling you about, I take baseball trips every year. I have to come to Florida eventually.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen,
Well, we'll have to go to
whether
a
I make it
baseball
through
game.
Jacksonville or not.
We'll have to go to a baseball game somewhere, and I'll have to
But
experience it on a level that is the true
yeah.
American way.
Well, you mentioned Forrest Gump and I'm a
Yes.
big movie guy, but a great baseball movie is called Bull Durham, and there's a great saying in there about baseball. There's sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, and sometimes it rains.
Hmm.
That's
And I
baseball in a
sat. It
nutshell.
is, and I got rained on, and it was still good. It was fine. I had popcorn, and I
Yeah.
had the. Yeah, it was great. Like I really again consciously now to experience things. I think I'm so glad I waited to experience a lot of this because if I would have experienced it any other time, I would have experienced it. I don't know if like please don't take me
Mm.
wrong the one but like the way most people do is just to go and to at least from who aren't the fans who aren't really like the devoted people who follow it on that. But like I would have just gone and been like, oh, it's a baseball game, like whatever, like oh, I'm just here, whatnot. And I actually consciously was there, and then the rain, and I was like, God, why are you making it rain today? Because I don't like rain, and I really had to have the struggle, like really struggle to sit and
Hmm.
enjoy the game through the rain because again I don't know why I don't like it, but but it's one of those I'm like, okay, well fine, I will still try to enjoy it. Because I was consciously aware of it, and it wasn't like I want to have a tantrum and I want to run off and I don't want to be a part of it and ruin it. And this is again the self accountability awareness of why you're feeling or where you're going and connecting your mind and body and being able to go, I can still enjoy this moment. I can still enjoy with my family. I
Hmm.
don't have to be the one because I don't like something or it's not what is
Hmm.
prefer for me. When everybody else around me I'm looking at are sitting there, literally not in their raincoats like I am, not in, I had all the protections, okay, leave me alone. But I still sat there and then I enjoyed it. And then I saw the play and then I saw the interactions and then I saw the families and I saw the kids and I saw, again, that wholesomeness of the American dream and what you just said, that like the culture of
Yeah.
going to games. And now I'm going to go experience a
Hmm.
football game here, the Jags game coming up for my sister's birthday. And again, I don't like that either. I'm not a big crowd stadium fan kind of girl. I'm really not. But I will for my family and people I love and things that they ask me, like I will. But again, I'm going to go now with this conscious awareness of now I'm going to look at it from a performance art. Even though I don't want to watch the violence
Hmm.
part of it, I'm going to look at it and because they've had to make, now I get, the more I learn and the more I talk to people, the more I uh, understand like what things mean. And
Yeah. No.
so
I mean,
it's really kind of
I,
cool.
I, I think that a lot of people, baseball has taken a secondary place to football as America's sport.
Yeah.
But it being the pastime, I love a baseball game because there's a lot of stillness in baseball.
Yeah.
There's a lot of time. There's a lot of time to reflect in baseball, and it's very slow. It's not like football. Football is fast
It's
paced.
so rowdy.
You have to you have to think about what's going on, and in my mind, I'm thinking about what the pitcher's going to do, what's the runner on first doing. I'm thinking it's making me think in my head when I'm watching a game and I'm analyzing it in my head. But also, like, I went out to San Francisco this past year to a baseball game, and I had to take in the beauty of the San Francisco Bay that's around that stadium. It's the most gorgeous ballpark I've been to yet for
Wow.
aesthetics because it's right on the cove. And I had to walk around the whole stadium to see what I was looking at. And it was a very like religious experience. I always think of baseball as like it's church for me. I go there, I get my nice game, my sermon, and I get to walk around this cathedral of ballpark, and I get to see guys play a child sport. I get to see grown men play a child sport, and I get to see little kids. I mean, even though sometimes kids can be loud, I can see mom and dad with the kid and they're out and they're having fun. I can see the little kids enjoying their first game with their with their glove and their with their dad. And I, I remember going. This is a great story too. I went to my first baseball game with my dad on Father's Day in '96 here in Cincinnati. It was my first major league game, and I got lost. And so I ended up at the back part of the stadium, and they radioed that my dad was up at the front of the ballpark where the home plate is. And they said, "Hey, go meet your dad." And they let me through the center field wall, and I got to run all the way to home. So when my dad died, I said, "I'll meet you at home again, Dad." And because that was a very great experience when my dad passed away, that I got to have that moment. We didn't have a lot of good moments like that, but I reflected back on having to run through center field all the way home to meet him there when I was 13 years old. And I told him, I said, I said, "I'll meet you at home again one day." And it was a great little kind of memory that popped into my head when he passed away. And that, like I said, baseball for me has always been it's the first thing I ever loved. I loved it before I loved wrestling. It's the first thing I've ever loved. And again, I'm watching it and I'm looking for the story. What's the story in this game? What's going on? What do they need? Who's pitching? It's all this stuff going together. Then I'm looking at the audience, and the wrestler in me goes, "What's the audience doing?" And I'm looking, and the crowds, they're doing chants, they're cheering, they're getting mad. They're getting mad at the umpires. It is it is just like being a wrestler. It is just like being a wrestler because I can see the guys on the field, and like they're performing for us,
Yeah.
and they're putting on a show. Granted, everything that they're doing is absolutely 110% real, but there's glances of theatrics in baseball.
Hmm.
There's the mascots, that's a theatric. There's the
The
fireworks
halftime
show, that's a theatric.
shows, the
Halftime
yeah.
shows in football, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's all art, but
Yeah.
it's disguised as reality,
Right.
if that makes sense. Whereas wrestling is art disguised as reality as well.
Yeah, it's
So,
all of it. Well, I think that's what makes what this whole process of existing as a human being so beautiful, because we as humans are artists. Like our whole, like the whole
mm-hmm,
reason why we've been created, like the word creation, we were created to create.
mm-hmm,
Whether that's destruction or that's beautiful creation of life or whatever, but we were designed for that. And when we don't do or fit into those places, or we're not fulfilling that purpose of creation, we're falling short, or
yeah,
we're falling into places where we don't know how to function. And one of the things that I found is that when we're talking about functionality and creation and art, like literally getting up and learning how to love your laundry, learning how to love your dishes, learning how to love your, taking care of your car, or taking care of like these moments in your own space and place of existence, and creating
mm,
your life to be almost like a theater too. Like, okay, well, I want to be more prestigious in this act of my life and in this season and in this
mm-hmm,
play. Okay, great. Let me see what that entails and what it is that I have to do and the character I have to build. Or I want to be a villain this time. And let me tell you a really quick story. I thought I was in my villain era this whole time. I thought it was in my big villain era, which by the look of your face, right? Everybody's look on their face. This is how misconstrued our own conceptions of ourselves are until we're told the truth.
right,
So I had to prepare for my for the Adela design, like the brand or whatever. It's prepare this like 10% marketing plan, and we had to put what I see Adela as. And I'm like, oh, I have to think about this. Like I have to put myself, and I'm just not good at that. Like I am not good at that because I just see myself as a villain. So I made this proposal and I did my point, and I sent it to a few people to see. And I was like, hey, this is what I was asked to do. This is what I think. This is what I feel like my persona is. This is what, like, and the responses were like, which one of your personalities do you think that is? Because it's not the main one. And I was like, what does that mean? Like time out. And
that's
then
rough.
it gets better. And then I was like, what do you mean? And they're very close humans of mine, and I trust them, to their say. So
Sure.
I value. But I was like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm mean. I'm like intimidating, and I'm like, right. I'm like, I'm a hard ass, because that's again the way people in my workspace and in my production space, I am like boom, 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 and I'm blunt, and I just come off that way. So to me, that's just an asshole, right? And so that's just how I thought my persona was, this badass asshole. So I had these images of I love Underworld. I think I'm my own like inner Kate Beckinsale's um, version. For Celine, I think I'm my own Celine. So I had these like Celine inspired, like this is what Adele is, and this is the stage presence we're gonna have. then somebody was like, Adela, you are the furthest thing from that. Like, that's just, I don't even
Yeah.
understand what you're like. That's like most of us around you, right? And so we
Hmm.
pull up this, oh my God, I forgot her name now, but she just passed away and I can't think of it now. Let me, oh, it doesn't matter. But we pull up this and she's this, she passed away not too recently, but she was the
Was it
fierce.
Shannon Doherty?
No, not Shannon Doherty. Let me really quick because I think you're,
Because that's the first name that popped in my head.
no,
But
but
but to
go
but
ahead.
to counter your point real quick is that here's a great connection to what you're talking about in wrestling when they with you kind of create your own character. It's almost like
Yes.
who do you want to be. So what I used to tell guys who are struggling with their character, I'm like, either be yourself, who you are, the closest thing to your personality, but just turn the volume up, or be completely different than yourself.
Yes.
Be the polar opposite of what you are, because that is going to be the head turner when you go out there. If you saw me wrestle, you would be like, I don't know this man. Why is this
Yeah.
man like fish
No,
hooking
my
another grown
character,
man?
yeah, my character was a
Like,
complete. We put her. She's in like again, and when I find her name, I'll send you, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. You'll laugh
okay,
at it afterwards. But
yeah.
and I see her name, but I can't remember right now. But she's in this yellow ruffles with her gray hair and her big old like pearls and these like beautiful rings, and she's just badass sitting there like this, and with her frou frou hair and just this like, I was like. I was like, oh, and they're like, that is you, Adela. If there's like, that is it. We are going to put that seventh personality away. She does not need to run the world because that's not the main one. But again, it
Mm-hmm.
goes to that perception of when you met me too, I thought I was like in my perception, I was this badass. like in my head,
But
right?
but but
And
but
you were like,
honestly, but
she's
honestly,
sick. I was like, what?
no, no, no. But you hear that I thought you were sick, but I also like I respected the fact that you were out there and you were on this journey and you were just
Right.
taking these photos. You guys pulled out a freaking parachute dress,
We did.
folks. For those of you who have never seen the Parachute Goddess Project, let me inform you that a parachute is not some small entity. It is a very large thing. Then Adela decides to get changed, and I'm like having to turn my back because I'm trying to be a gentleman.
And
And
I'm
I'm
a
like,
model and I
she
just do my
just,
job.
she does not care. Does not care that I'm standing there. Grown man met 5 minutes ago, hugged them,
But I
doesn't
didn't
care that she's
expose
getting done.
myself. I was very
She didn't.
respectful. I
She
was
was very respectful.
right. I kept
But
myself.
at the
I
same
know.
time,
But I
I
know what
saw
I.
I saw clothes coming off, my back turns, but you were still, you put that dress on and it was like a light switch turned on. It was like you went right into what you've always done, the modeling aspect of it. You were right in there. I've never taken photos for a model up until the point I took the photos for you, but I'm looking through the lens and I'm like, she really kind of knows what she's doing. Like she's very fierce in this. Like, and again, the mindset is that she's sick and doesn't care,
Yeah.
but she's flaunting it. She's going for it. She's taking the risk. She's putting herself out there to me. I'm standing there. I'm the audience. I'm watching her for the first time. You didn't care. It was like I wasn't there, but I was. And you were like taking these photos in this great old rundown Adobe house.
It was so
And then,
beautiful.
like I said, you took photos post that. You did the same exact thing. Like I could tell your artist ability is not just the photo. It is the setting. It is how you're wearing the dress. It is, I get it. Because I don't like to consider myself an artist, but again, when you've been in a business where you can see the bigger picture and you can
Yeah.
you can look at something and go, okay, that's art. Like
No, I
I get
believe
it.
every human being is an artist, and when we have to create something out of our imagination, like literally this life we're meant to eat and sleep. That's it. Like as a like if we were just an entity existing here, it's just eat and sleep. Like that's it, and maybe do frolic
Yeah.
whatever, right? But when we are creating what we're creating, the cities, the
Hmm.
games, these realities, for like, that is art in every way. And for people who
Yeah.
are coding, and for people who are in the back having to put together a label, or having to put together anything, any written, any thought that's put into something is a creation. And to
Hmm.
me, when I look at a human being, I just cannot unsee an artist. And so, like, when you say you're not an artist, I'm like, hell no, you're also on the Artist Within podcast, so now you are
No,
officially
no,
an
I
artist,
said
and you can't say that.
I don't consider
Oh
myself
well,
an artist. I'm saying like,
you better consider yourself now. You better. But it is, because it's so true. Like, how can we not, as human beings, be the artists of our lives, or the artists of this reality, or the artists of this just existence? Because, again, whatever anybody believes, and I say this constantly, to each his own in that, but God didn't put us on this planet, and that God didn't create us not to be able to create something so much deeper, past the physical realm of us, right? Like,
right,
past just like these, again, our random chance of meeting, and our random help of that. Like, I wasn't even in the thought I'll ever see you again either, or we'll ever talk, or we'll have a connection. But our abilities to do that as human beings, through expression, right? Through expressing what we love, through expressing what we
hmm,
feel, through
yeah,
expressing moments that are just, as you said, like, being honest and authentic and real and vulnerable to yourself. When I came, that had just finished shaving my head in December, and that was my rebirth project. That was the suicide awareness project I did, for to speak about my own mental health. And that was me reclaiming, that was my rebirth. And so, like, that trip was literally me going through
mhm,
and rediscovering myself, and deciding what imprint of this human I wanted to be, and experimenting and figuring it out, and seeing, learning how to connect, learning what it means to be a
mhm.
social being, because I didn't know what that was. And
Right,
I thought I did. And so, all of these experiences, and to lead to here now, that was 2020. We're in 2024, going to 2025. I mean, this is almost 5 years into this creation of energy and spiritual connection that most
hmm,
humans don't allow themselves to have, because,
right,
again, our own prejudgments, our own pre-thoughts, our own whatever it is that's blocking it. And the fact that you even, again, most people will brush me off, throw me out, and just be like, get the off, like, but that you accept it, and that you were there for that too. And I was just like, oh, that's cool, this is great. I'm just good, again, I'm just gonna do me, regardless of anything. um it's really cool to be able to reconnect and share this story, and then share how.
yeah,
But I can't wait to see what the future is going to hold for this relationship and this partnership, just because of
yeah.
the way we're going to grow. Like, we did not meet for no reason. Like, it just did not happen
No,
for
and
that.
again,
Like,
I don't believe it. I don't believe in coincidences because again, you were on a journey of your own for suicide prevention.
yeah,
I literally went from putting a gun in my mouth to being in Phoenix because my dog, my wonderful dog, saved my life. And I said, I have to get out of this place because if I don't get out of this place, they're going to find me in this basement.
yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to be there. And I don't think that meeting you was any just like, oh, coincidence. Our paths in life were destined to cross. Even if it's in a one singular place, that's where it crossed. But again, like I said, if my phone doesn't work, I'm not there. If if I didn't leave late, we're not in that same area at the same exact
Just
time.
one thing off, it wouldn't
Just
have
one thing after
happened
another wouldn't have happened. So again, I don't think of coincidence. I think that
exactly as it
for
was
whatever reason,
designed.
the world put us together for a reason.
Yeah.
And again, it was it was bad circumstances, but I didn't know what you were going through. You didn't know what I was going through. We just kind of connected and
We share the
just had
human
that moment
we
in
share the
a
human
brief time.
experience. Yeah, I should.
But I walked away from it going feeling like this lady just doesn't know who I am, but made me feel like I was important.
Thank
And
you.
you're welcome, but it's just because like handshakes would have been fine. I wouldn't have felt the same way, but because you forced your, it's going to sound bad.
It
You
is.
forced your hug upon me,
I did.
and I'm like, okay, like, yeah, and I'm like, I was always raised. I raised in Southern Ohio that if someone gives you a hug, you hug them back, even if you don't know them. Because I've been to plenty of funerals where I've had to hug
Yeah.
500 people and I don't know who they are, and I'm hugging them, and
Yeah.
I'm just like they're thanking me for whatever, or they're telling me stories about whomever, and I'm like, "Yep, love you too. Okay, cool, great." And then, like I said, when you gave me a hug, I felt obligated at that point because I put my hand out. And you just were like, "Get it away from me." I hug, and I'm like, okay, this is. But again, you got to remember, I
And
told
I
you that
and
you just learned that story about
and
me
so
thinking you
just
were
know
sick.
this, yeah, and just know this. I did feel that's one of the reasons I think, and that was when I was starting to really take into my of intuition of a hug. Like I won't take no for those who are in the moment of need of a hug because I know 100% what it's like to be and feel absolutely nothing in this world, even though you do have people
Yeah,
around you or you whatever, but just to feel that nothing and
right, and that's
to
where I
be
was.
seen with to be seen like without anything, like just to be seen,
Mhm.
just to be there. um that's what I like I'd always wanted from someone, and I've always like, and once I was able to provide that for myself and others in some way and shape or form, little small ways provided, but I just know what it's like not to have that full moment of like I am seen, like I am just seen as a whole human. I don't care about like no other detail doesn't, it doesn't matter. I don't even care about your name. Like I don't care.
No,
I just care that you're here, this moment, and this experience, and this branding it
and
into a
and and
space that will last
and that
forever.
and that's what I needed because I knew I had friends, but it was I tell the story and it makes me upset because when my best friend first passed away, everybody was checking on me, and then a few people were checking on me, and then one person was checking on me, and he was checking on me every week, and I think he might have missed a week, and that's the week that I almost ended it. And but I again, it was just one of those things where I don't like I don't like people being giving you window dressing and
Yeah.
saying, "Hey, I'll be there for you, and if you need me." And I'm very humble where I won't ask for help,
Yep.
and that's the hardest thing for me to overcome is that I have to suck up my pride sometimes. And like I said, everybody stopped checking on me, and that's when I see someone in distress, or like I hadn't talked to you in a while, or I hadn't seen any posts from you in a while, and finally I saw one, and I'm like, I got to reach out to her. I got to make sure she's doing okay because I if I'm going to preach it, I got to do it.
Yeah.
So that's why I said I was like, hey, I'm glad you're doing good. If you need a guest, I'll come on. No questions asked. We'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. Cool by me. Um, and so that's when I see people and like I have a lot of friends on Facebook that struggle with some stuff like that. And
Yep.
when they make it a very when I call it vague booking,
Mm-hmm.
when they vague book and you read between the lines, I'll message a personal message like, hey, are you okay? I know we
Yeah.
haven't talked in a while or whatever, but I keep up with your goings and making sure that you're okay. Are you all right? Do you just need to vent? Do you need someone to talk to? I'm always here. Doors always open. Whatever you want to go get a drink, we'll go talk. Because and then they'll they might open up and I might say, hey, I was in your shoes. Um, if it wasn't for Piper, my dog, I wouldn't be here. I'll go through my whole story. I'll go through the story of meeting you or taking my vision quest across the desert and being reborn in the
Yeah.
middle of Cimarron, New Mexico, and tell them like I came out of there a better man, not just a person, a better man. And so hopefully that helps. And if anybody's listening to this, I hope that if it helps them, if they hear something that I've said today or my journey or what they're going through, that you know again, everybody's experienced some kind of loss on a certain level, and you can connect with someone, and maybe something they say will help you. And that again, not all of us are going to have the journey that I had with you on that trip, but again, you might if you can see it, if you don't overthink it sometimes, you'll see that there is someone there. You have connected with someone or someone cares. Let them in. Let them see the vulnerable side of you. Let them see that. Um, I wasn't in that place to show you that because you were a stranger, but I mean,
But
I'm
I
sure
knew,
hugging me, you could feel it.
I knew, and I remember when I walked away, and I remember telling Leilana, I was like, I really hope that he finds his way. I remember like telling her that because there's something I've come to realize is that I have an affinity to feel people's energy and know where they're at.
Yeah,
It's a weird thing, but I trust it now. But I felt that, and I knew you weren't in a place like I knew you were in a place that I had just left. But I also didn't know how to tell you or how to even bring. Again, we weren't in that
yeah,
position to even bring it up. But I also knew that
no,
energy speaks a lot louder than words, and so I hope
yeah,
that humans understand that even if when you're listening, guys, if you're listening to this, it is Suicide Awareness Month because we're filming this in September right now. And if you are in a position or thinking of just not in a good space or place, um, take a moment and you may not like reach out to the one person that pops in your head first because and they may or may not answer right away, but reach out again and continue to reach out and continue to go down the list of your people because there is one, and you don't need more than one. Sometimes you really don't, but you need the one that you can feel safe enough to trust, to share, to trust, to be there, to just accept you as you are in that space and time and place, not to judge, not to put you in anywhere, not to just to be there for you. And so there are humans like that. And that's what this podcast is for. And that's what we're here for, and trying to open these conversations and create these bridges and create these moments of understanding that humans are so much more complex and so much more mysterious and vulnerable than we're ever giving ourselves credit for. And part of our existence is the feeling, is the vulnerability. We've just shied away from it so much that feeling joy, feeling, sadness or feeling vulnerability is just hard for us. But feeling fear and anxiety and depression and all these negative things is so easy. So how do we and how can we exchange, these moments and pass these and like we just had? And I think that that's helped us, and we can always, and that
no,
doesn't mean that we're fixed by all means. It just means that
no,
when we are in that
no.
space, we don't necessarily even have to reach out physically to someone. We can reach out in our mind to that moment and go, I really enjoyed that experience. I can see that, like, I can see that value again. And a lot of times, that's why it's so important to be kind to humans and so important to be kind to those who you interact, because you just don't know what they're going through. And sharing a moment of kindness and sharing a moment and even sharing a hug to a stranger. I know that sounds crazy. Again, don't listen, you guys.
It
I'm not
it is
saying
it is
these.
crazy.
I'm not saying so that people get hurt. I get it. There's crazy people out there. Take me to jail for saying that, but there is all of that. But what I'm saying is that there's a lot more better than we think. Um, and if we start to show those acts of kindness, I believe that that's going to triumph. I know that that's going to triumph and win way more than anything else. And you and I are proof of that experience because we had 15
Very
minutes
much so.
in literally 15 minutes to just, hey, hug, 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 boom, throw a parachute, bye bye. It literally was like
Yeah,
that, at least from my
gone
perspective,
and out of my
like,
life. I was like, like I'll never see them again. I literally sat there because I was, like I said, I was in that hotel by myself, and I was like sitting there. I'm like, they had the animals out back that I was feeding because they gave you like chicken feed to feed all the animals.
and
So
I
I'm
thought
like
you were
sitting
the
there.
owner of this place, and I'm here
I
to ask
know,
permission. I'm like, can we shoot?
I know.
Can we do these little
And
things?
I'm like,
And you're like, I
I'm
don't
like, I
care.
don't
I
care.
don't live here.
I don't live here. Yeah. So I guess my thought is that for me, my routine became every day the same exact thing when I was depressed.
Yeah.
It was work, put on a smiling face at work, the happy go lucky, but I'd come home and I wasn't eating. I wasn't functioning correctly. I was having moments of breaking down and I was in pain and I didn't want to be in pain anymore. My advice to you is it's going to sound corny and cliche. Break the cycle
Yeah.
for yourself. Like go out, go to a walk on a park. Um, go to a baseball game. I don't care. Do something out of the norm for yourself. Take a trip, take a road trip, anything. Get a friend, take a road trip with them,
Go have
whatever. Break the
lunch.
cycle. Yeah, go have
Something.
lunch. Break the monotony of what you're doing when you're down. Um, and again, if you're not over religious, but if you are, maybe go sit in the back of a church one day,
Yeah.
and just to be around that positivity in that room.
Yeah.
Um, I thought about it too. I'm not Catholic, but I thought about going to a Catholic church because the ceremony in the cathedrals are beautiful, and I needed um, that visual in my mind to be there. And I thought about like going to midnight mass and just pouring my heart out there, but I chickened out. But the thought made me feel different, like going
Yeah.
there, like the thought did. And I said, maybe I need to do that. Maybe I need to go because I used to go to church when I was a kid, and maybe I need to find it again. And I'm not preaching here. This isn't a religious talk because I still don't go to church. Um,
Me neither. But
but I,
but yeah, you're right though. That's so true.
yeah,
Not to interrupt you on that, but that's so true because I just had the same not too long ago on having that. I was raised Roman Catholic, so like I understand of having that need to connect to something
yeah,
on a in reality that's physical to not what we physically see, like because it doesn't seem real.
yeah,
Nothing seems real. We're just not in a real state of
yeah,
existence, and so we need something that can maybe ground
hmm
us and whatever that may look for you, you know. And like you said, for you,
yeah. Just change, like I said, just change up your routine because we dig ourselves in a hole, and then when it might be 2 feet, but if we keep digging, it's going to get taller and taller, and eventually we ain't gonna be able to climb out of it.
yeah,
And it's going to be too late, and you don't want that. Like I said, I wish the best for everybody with their mental health, and I don't take it lightly anymore. um, I used to, and I don't because I've been there, and I thought that I was strong minded,
mm-hmm,
and you don't know what you're going through until you're at the very bottom of whatever you're at. And again, to speak on that trip, that was me just being like, the heck with it. I literally went to my boss and was like, I'm taking these days off. I'm going to Phoenix. I'm going to take a few days off and I'll be gone. And he was like, cool. He knew what I was going through. And he didn't for 1 second let up on me about it. He was just like, yeah, go have
yeah,
fun, enjoy your friends. And again, I was only with I didn't want my friends to see me in that vulnerable position. I put on the smiling face for them too. And I felt obligated to apologize to them when the next time I went to Phoenix. I said, hey, the last time I was here, I wasn't me. And I put on a facade, and I'm sorry.
yeah,
And that was a lot of healing too, is because you got to go make amends for your transgressions. And it sounds stupid because you were going through some stuff, but you were being selfish and not letting them in, because if you consider them a friend, you should be able to let them in too, and let them hear they're going to accept you for every part of you, good, bad, or ugly. And that's what, some lessons you have to learn the hard way, and suck up your pride and say, hey, I'm sorry for this. And they were like, don't even worry about it,
yeah,
all that stuff. They're like, we knew, we could tell. And I'm like, well, then I suck at what I was doing. Trying to put on that facade. They're like, yeah, we knew you were going through some stuff, but
yeah.
we didn't bring it up or anything.
I read. I
So,
saw. I saw a quote, and I'm gonna get it right. But the guy Simon, I forgot his last name, but he's a motivational speaker, um, and he said something along the lines, which really kind of hit me hard because I'm one of those people like whatever, do your own thing. But he said something to me. He's like, as a friend, you take away my right and to answer you whether I want to be there and help you or not. You take away my ability to make a decision for that without even you take it upon yourself to think you know me enough, in some way. And
yeah,
I'm exaggerating a bit, guys, so don't quote me on the quote
no,
completely. But
you get it. Yeah.
it's that like you take that away, and that's so selfish, and and it's exactly
Hmm.
right on that when we go into that. And when we talk about mental health, and we don't when we talk about the depression of it, it is a selfish state of existence because it puts you in a place of your own doing. And I don't mean that society, environment, and all these other things don't play a huge factor in that. But when we talk about the mental strength and the resilience and the inner part of who we are, when we don't have a strong identity of who we are and what we stand for and where we're what our narrative is going to be for the future, for tomorrow, for today, is that we don't know what today even looks like, then we are so susceptible to digging that grave of our own selves, and then no one
Hmm.
around us could help us out because we're just screaming from the bottom and no one can hear. No one can throw in the things, or no one has the resources, or no, and then you're just gonna, well, just bury me. And that is, I understand it, of being very sympathetic and empathetic and compassionate to that state of existence. But at the same time, if we don't have the real conversation, and again, I'm speaking from experience, I was there, I lived it, I tried to take my life on multiple occasions, and I know what that does. It is really a selfish state of existence because we don't see ourselves as valuable in any shape or form. There's no worth in our own selves. And so we
Hmm.
take away from everyone else the
Hmm.
decision, the ability to share what value we have for them, what
Hmm.
worth we're there from them. We decide for them that we're not worth it, that we're not capable, that we're not good enough. And for
Hmm.
me, when I heard that, and that was just not too long ago that I heard that, but it didn't click in for me, like why I was so
Hmm.
against just even my own narrative sometimes of like, no, you have to really
Hmm.
accept and understand. And it didn't sit well with me. But it's because of that. It is so right. We decided upon ourselves that you are not strong enough to handle my mess. You're not. Like, and then we judge you for some
Hmm.
stuff. And but that is the depressive, selfish state. Like, that is what anxiety does. That's what depression does. That's what people, and again, come at me whatever way. We're not medical professionals, not in any shape or form, but I'm just stating
Nope.
experiences of humans being there. And when that comes in, I've learned now to be like, okay, you're here. You're not what I want. Like, I know my identity now. I know my worth. I am here. I am a
Hmm.
child of God, and I am a human being, and that counts for something. Period.
Yeah.
I don't care about anything else, but that counts for something. And I don't have the right. I am not the judge, jury, and executioner to take that away from, even, again, what everybody believes, but from God Himself, to say that I'm not worthy of what He's created for that.
Nope.
So
Nope.
having these conversations and having these experiences, having the freedom to have these conversations about how we're existing and where we're at, and being able to correct ourselves, right? Rehabilitate our thinking and reform it, and understand that we're going to relapse on an everyday basis. Like, it's a drug chemical thing happening in our brain, so of course we're going to relapse. But to have these
Nope.
relationships, to have these moments, to have these conversations, to be able to guide each other, I think that's just the most wonderful part of this experience. And I think that's what's missing in just all of our fields of existence, but especially the mental health field. When we're talking about in our health field, when we're really
Hmm.
talking about bridging the gaps or sharing experiences, we're not talking about the individual experience of their existence. We're talking about a generalized experience. And that experience is so different. And meeting people where they're at and letting them know, like, I understand, I feel it, you're different, I can't help it, I can't be responsible and accountable for it for you, but I can
Nope.
hold space for you for a moment, and I can let you see where you stand, and I can let you see if you can find an identity with it. And if you can't, I can
Hmm.
help you and guide you through that, but I cannot, again, be responsible and accountable for you and your decisions in your life. And I think that freedom
Yeah.
also gives us the ability to work on our own selves, because society has put us to say, like, you're responsible, I'm responsible for your mental health, Devlin, and I'm responsible for how I, like, no
Yeah.
offense, but I'm not. Like, and I'm not accountable for the decisions you make. I am
Hmm.
responsible for my actions. I am accountable for my responses
Hmm.
and how I interact and what I'm going to do and the
Hmm.
consequences of that. But I'm not responsible or accountable for you and your existence. And we've been
Right.
so much conditioned to believe that that's what
Hmm.
community is, that that's what our social construct is, or that's what family is, or that's what friends are, like these
Hmm.
relationships, that we're so afraid to have true, honest conversations of, again, coming in and being
Right.
like, dude, you're not there right now. What do you need for me to be there to help you? But just know that this isn't going to
Hmm.
stay for long. Like, how can we get you out of here? What can we do? Like, you're better than that.
Right.
Like, let's. And again, I say it so simply. It's not simple. The process is not simple at
No.
all. It's the hardest thing ever. But these are the words. These are the truths that need to be spoken for
Yeah.
those who are in those places, because I don't think we'll ever move on or get past the feeling, right? And the feeling is
Yeah.
so fleeting, because you and I both felt it.
Hmm.
And again, so again, my message, I think my point on this is that your feeling and the way you're fleeting on that in that moment is valid for the moment, but it's not valid for your reality. It's not valid for the lifetime.
Right.
It's not valid for your actual truth and existence and what,
Right.
like, your truth is.
Yeah. No. And again, and anybody listen to this, this is the first time I've ever talked about my suicide publicly. my suicide attempt publicly. I've written I've written about it in the sense that like I danced around it, but I never faced the reality. And all my friends know, my nephews know, because I felt like they were obligated to know that I had been in that position, um, and why I was in that position. And not that I was looking for sympathy, but I wanted to tell them that like, look, I know when things get down, like it's I've been at the lowest of low that you could possibly be without it getting worse.
Right.
So like coming on here, I knew that I was going to have to talk about it, and it's a big step forward to understanding and accepting that I was vulnerable in a situation, and I had allowed myself to get that way. And I didn't try to seek others, and I didn't try to tell people that I was sick or I wasn't good in my head. Um, and that's on me. And
Mm-hmm.
I try not to do that anymore. There are times where I'm like, I'm having a bad day, but I'm like, is it so bad that I can't get through it now?
Yeah, yeah, where I can't
Is it?
process it or I can't understand it or I can't. And
Yeah,
if I can't, let me talk to someone to
yeah,
talk it through, right? Let me
yeah,
make sure I'm receiving the information that's happening so that I can
yeah,
understand it and I can make the decisions I need. And I think that those
hmm
conversations are so different than help me, save me, do these things because you're like,
yeah,
hey, I'm just trying to understand. Can you guide me through something and let me talk
hmm
through this because I don't know if I'm following this. And a lot of the
yeah,
times, just that alone is enough for a lot of humans who are in this space and place. They
mm,
just don't understand what's happening, and they need to talk it out, voice it out, and process it. And not again, I don't need
yeah,
to tell you what to do. You already know. We already know. We already knew what
yeah,
to do. We
yeah,
just we weren't capable of making the decision for the right thing because we didn't understand the process of what was happening. And when you're in that
right,
state of existence and you don't have that, it's hard. And again, I'm so glad that we were
yeah,
able to talk about this. First of all, and thank you for sharing because I didn't expect it. I just thought
yeah.
we were going to talk about, the baseball
No,
and this meeting, and just so
no.
I truly
We're
appreciate
going
it
to talk
because
about the human experience. We're going to talk about it as a whole, and we're going to talk about me. And again, I'm not one to be that vulnerable, but you gotta if you're going to come on something like this, you got to be vulnerable, be real, and let people hear that it's not just them. There's other people out there that experience this, and maybe someone listening to this has the same exact step by step thing that I went through, or they're going through it. And if I can help one person and pass that forward of what you gave to me during that time, then I am most grateful to do that. There's a reason why we met, and there's a reason why we continue to meet in certain circumstances because we're both still here.
yeah,
If you're not here and I'm not here, we never meet.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
and if you're here and I'm not here, we never meet. So again, I don't believe in coincidences. I believe in realities and things that happen for a reason. That's why. And again, I want to for someone to take something from this. I don't care what it is. If you love the stories, great,
yeah,
you took something from it. If you want to know more about if you're listening to this and you want to know about how to get in the wrestling business, and it intrigues you, and you can see me and go, hey, if that guy can be in the wrestling business, I can be in the wrestling business. If you hear my story and you love it so much and you're like, that was such a great story, you took something from it. That was my whole goal of coming on here, but I knew that it's not fair to Adela if I don't share my entirety of everything. If I just give the piece of the story of how we met, that's not fair to the story because
no,
there's so much more that goes backwards.
yeah,
And how we got to the story, it doesn't that's what matters is how we got to the story, but how we got to the story. If that makes sense. The
yeah.
beforehand of how the story is, like I said in the beginning, we can start with the finish, but there is no finish yet.
No, there's
We
never a
have to
finish
we're telling the story
from a
as it
point.
goes from a point, and I worked my way backwards because that's how I needed to tell your audience of my struggles and what I was going through. um, and I think somebody needs to hear that and hear how special You are in a moment in my life, and I had to confess the reality in my brain during that time as well, because I knew that
That's
you would
really
either
kind.
laugh about it or you'd be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe this is what this gentleman was feeling." Like,
No, that's the
but
best description I've ever
I
had
just,
of me. That's
yeah,
great.
I just want someone to hear my voice, and if I live another 80 years and I saved one person, I've done something.
Yeah.
Because then I've passed on what Adela did for me, and giving me hope that someone that didn't know me cared, didn't know me for but she cared. She cared. My friends that abandoned me, they said they cared. She cared. You don't hug strangers in Lincoln, New Mexico that you don't know if you don't care. And that's why, again, this is why I don't believe in coincidences. I've been fascinated with Billy the Kid since I was a child, and Lincoln, New Mexico, and going there. And I never thought I would go there. And then I end up there in the circumstances that I was, and I meet you. There's a reason why my brain and my attraction to that place was always there, because somewhere in my lifetime it was going to happen.
Yeah.
And it happened in a time when I needed it. And I again I still think about it and I go, wow, I went from dreaming about seeing that place to going there when I needed to go there, and then I ran into this person and I needed to run into that person. Like, why is the world working like that with me? And I stop and I go, stop trying to think about
The
why
why.
it's doing it to you. Just let it happen,
Yep.
and
Trust the
let
process.
that feeling resonate within you.
Yeah.
And so again, if you are listening to this and you take something from my voice, please take something from it. And that's really all I can say. And that'll do my heart good to know that somebody connected with that.
And let me ask you really quick, because we're gonna have more conversations. I'm so excited. But are you, your existence now in your state of being now is in a good place, right? And again, it just
Yeah.
shows people that we're gonna have ups
No,
and downs, but
I
it's
mean,
in a good
let
place
me be
now,
honest.
you know, and not
It's
perfect.
never in a good place.
Okay.
It's never in a good place.
Okay.
It's in a place that is where it needs to be,
Okay. I like that.
because I slip like everybody else. When Matt's birthday comes around, when Father's Day comes around, when my grandmother's birthday comes around, when the date of the week of his death comes around, I slip, and I'm in a foul mood, and but I don't slip the way I slipped.
Yeah.
I tell
That's the
stories.
progress. That's the progress of
Mhm.
our healing and our
Yeah,
journey. And
yeah.
that's good to hear.
I talk about him like I'm talking right now. I
Yeah.
talk about him. I tell stories that are funny. I remember my friend for the time that I had him.
Yeah.
Not a minute memory in time. 7 days, 5 days, or excuse me, 5 days of him being in the hospital and then passing away. That is a minuscule footnote in his entire life, and in 17 years, 18 years that I knew him. I got 18 years worth of memories and stories. That is way more than what I
Yeah.
that minus 5 days
Yeah.
does. Yes, is it important? And I never forget it. Absolutely, because it makes me aware that there are 18 years prior to that. So my mental health is right now is where it needs to be. And again, I slip and I come back, and I slip and I come back, and I don't plan on slipping far,
Right.
just enough to let me know that it's still there and I'm still alive, and I
Yeah.
need to have these conversations.
Yeah.
So
No, that's good to hear and that's good to know and that's part of again that's the whole part of this journey and part of
yeah,
the whole human life experience and it's not something we're trained to do an experience at all. We're not even talked or taught to.
mm-hmm.
Um, Devlin, I appreciate this conversation so much. I appreciate the laughs and just this
Yeah,
journey we've been on. What can you leave our listeners with one sentence of inspiration or one, or motivation or whatever you think that they need to hear? And then where can they find you if they do want, if somebody is interested in learning more about pro wrestling or talking to you, or where can they
sure.
find you?
So you can find me on Facebook. It's just Devlin Clemons. That's DevlinClemons. You can find me on Instagram at Devlin Clemons 83. Um, if I want to leave someone with something, I love a band from Sweden called Dark Tranquillity. It's a little Swedish metal band, but they have some beautiful melodic songs sometimes. And every once in a while you find a gem. And there's a song it's called Forward Momentum. And the lyrics touched me in such a way. I listened to the song every day for like a month straight. The main lyric is this, that, and the way I take it is this life, it's not the lyric, but this life is a forward momentum race. And if you think about that, if you ever watch any races ever, it's all forward momentum. No one drives backwards in a race. So we have to keep going forward
Yeah.
to where we need to the finish line. We need to keep going until we're a better wherever whatever point in our lives are at. It's all forward momentum. Whether someone's pushing you from behind and pushing you across that finish line, or you're pushing yourself, or you're dragging yourself, we're all trying to get to that finish line. It's forward momentum. That's my kind of credo that I tell people is that we're in forward momentum. We ain't going backwards.
No, I love that because it just goes with my motto of just keep moving, just keep moving, just keep moving.
Yep,
Because if you're just moving and moving forward, sometimes that's all you need to survive, and sometimes that's all you need to get to the
yep,
place of living. And then when you're able to get to that place, you're able to process and understand and reflect and really start healing on
100%.
yourself. So, thank you so
100%.
much for this conversation. I
Thank, thank you for
appreciate it.
having me. Honestly, thank you for having me so much. You could have picked 1,000 other people, and I appreciate being able to come on here and tell our origin story and talk about a little bit. I haven't talked about wrestling like this in a long time, so you got the old motor running again. So I was like,
Good.
no, don't
Good.
scratch that it. Don't scratch that itch.
But
Don't scratch that itch to get back into wrestling.
it could scratch it in a different way. You never know what out of this, you
Yeah,
know.
I
You
know,
never know. So
I know,
hey, good
I know.
scratch. That's so awesome.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness, you guys! I hope you enjoy this podcast. I hope you enjoy this conversation, and I hope you've learned something. And again, please don't hesitate to reach out to anyone that you need to. And specifically, if you don't have anyone around you, reach out to 988. It is a suicide prevention lifeline, and they will have resources for you. They will have guides for you. And even now, if you don't want to call, if you don't want to do it, go to 988.com and .org, I believe. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but 988, that's the number. Go on there, go check it out, and they'll give you resources. You'll find pamphlets, information. You'll find so much useful ways that you can at least start navigating your way in your life, and start finding common ways that in your community you can reach out to places. And there's a lot of nonprofits in your communities, there's a lot of charities, there's a lot of service that is available to you if you just look for it and are willing to and decide that you're worth the look for it. It does take it upon yourself. You have to act upon it, you have to be responsible for it, but it is so worth it. You are so worth that. Don't ever forget that. Like, you as a human being are so worth the effort upon yourself. No one will do it for you. Literally, that's not what we're designed for. We're not designed to do it for someone else. We're designed to do it for ourselves so that we can then be in service of others, so that we can be a fuel for other things. But before taking care of yourself, you cannot take care of anything else. So just please make sure that you know you're worth it. And if you don't, and if you want to reach out, well, I'm always here for a chat. Fink is always here. Reach out to our social medias, reach out through that way, and we'll make sure that at least we walk you through a process of your thinking so that you can understand there's always a new way to think. There's always a new way to process, and there's always a new way forward. So much love. Follow, subscribe, and do all the other good things, and we'll catch you up on the next ones. Thank you, my love.